Betsy and Thomas here. For the American Intelligence Media, today we're decoding Trump tweets of January 15th, 2019. And the first one is amazing. I can't believe he's actually tweeting this, Thomas. The rank and file of the FBI are great people who are disgusted with what they are learning about Lion James Comey and the so-called leaders of the FBI. 12 have been fired or forced to leave. They got caught spying on my campaign and then called it an investigation. Bad.
I like the bad part.
Hey, look, we've been talking about this for 2 years, and to finally see this being tweeted so that people around the world can see it, this is great.
Well, the beauty of it is that he is in the White House. He's alone. He's having to, order out hamburgers himself and pay for it out of his own wallet. He's pared down, and the essential are there, and the non-essential aren't. And that's right, Schumer and Pelosi, they're non-essential. They're not there. These beautiful bombs are augmented by the fact that the New York Times came out with a really stupid article. It is so stupid that it is one teensy, tiny piece of the crossfire hurricane mess that has become the Mueller investigation witch hunt. And what is being said here is that after James Comey was fired, that then they opened an investigation. No, that isn't true. That isn't true at all. They considered opening an investigation, and they sat around and even talked about wearing wiretaps and wiretapping Trump's campaign, his office, his Trump Towers. They talked about every illegal thing you could possibly do. So to say that then an investigation was begun, no. What happened was the FBI at that point overtly then was so angry that the rank and file, not the leadership, but the rank and file of the FBI wanted an investigation done. And so there was no investigation at that point. And still, to this moment, there was never an investigation. But there was an investigation. There was a counterintelligence operation, which then rolled into it the question of obstruction of justice, into the question of conspiracy for collusion and so on and so forth, which had already been going and ran by Peter Strzok. And, of course, Lisa Page was there to help him, and Andrew McCabe. And Comey was aware of every single step of the way of Peter Strzok was approved by James Comey. Now,
well, before you go on and you say now, for 2 years I've listened about how wonderful the rank and file of the FBI is, but I have this to say. If they're so good, how come they can't find major crimes and treason under their own roof? If they're so good, how come they can't just walk down and pick up the paperwork they need and start the investigations they need? Why is it that citizens of the United States have had to rally together in the internet to press forward and find out what the truth is? Where is our rank and file FBI? It's been 2 years since we started reporting this. I still haven't seen anything come out of the FBI except for all their lies. And then you look at the senior executive positions lodged all throughout the FBI. My gosh, it's even being run. Director Christopher Wray is SES. I mean, this is just propaganda BS, and I'm not buying it.
Christopher Wray is just as corrupt as Comey and Andrew McCabe. He had already been groomed to come into that position, and he is a lying, cheating sack of manure. He is not a law enforcement agent. He is a lawbreaker. And as you say, the FBI is corrupt. It should basically be closed down. But why? You ask the question, why? Why do they do this? Because the 37,000 people working in the FBI in D.C. work directly for 137,000 people working in the Department of Justice. It's the lawyers who tell the FBI what they can and can't do. And that is the reason lawyers came in, Lisa Page and others, James Baker, and rewrote the exoneration letter that was written a month before Hillary was even spoken to, exonerating her for her email crimes and for the espionage of having a non-secure server and other devices, which she full well knew. That was a part of a plan, very clear plan from the beginning, that Obama was involved in, so was Loretta Lynch and everyone else that communicated with her, because they communicated on non-secure lines. Now, What's radical about this is that the word spying is also connected to investigation. Now Spygate is legitimized by the false accusation that an investigation was opened. Now, remember, Comey said 3 times in testimony before the Congress, there was no investigation of Trump. He said 3 times to Trump when Trump asked, and he even put it in his notes, there is no investigation of you, Mr. President. There was never an investigation of him. There was a counterintelligence operation.
Let's be very clear about it. To overthrow the presidency of Donald J. Trump. This is what the FBI was doing with the Department of Justice. And you mentioned these attorneys from the Department of Justice. Don't forget these 500 attorneys that we've identified were all being supervised by, guess who? Bruce Orr.
That's right. He's one of the 500 SES, the highest review board there is. And basically, he isn't going to be fired because he can't be. Andrew McCabe probably can't be fired. Many of these people can't be fired because they're SES members, and certainly Christopher Wray, SES. So, the tying together the implanting of spies into the Trump campaign, as well as using British spies and Russian spies, Ukrainian spies through the Atlantic Council, on and on and on, now legitimizes the statement that there was spying going on, because if there was an investigation that involved spying, it cannot be hidden underneath the guise of national security. And as we told you, that's the way they hid the whole thing. Crossfire Hurricane was a CIA counterintelligence operation under the guise of national security that did not need FISA warrants because Peter Strzok had the ability to write, and Comey signed, national security letters, which are just as powerful. You can get any warrants you want with a national security letter because the head of the CIA, the director, has to swear that the national security letter is true. Remember, Comey swore that the FISA warrant requests were true, and they weren't.
Well, I think that Trump has done a great job educating mainstream America about the importance of a border wall. And, he's already building that wall. And so the rest is just to continue the red pilling of average people who just don't understand what's going on. And I see this as the beginning of the attacks of the red pilling for the regular American people about the corruption in Washington with the FBI. What do you say about that?
I say absolutely. The red pilling is coming because it's become an item in the New York Times, that the New York Times would now actually go out and stick their neck out and put it on the chopping block when in fact they are incorrect. But what they are implying is the truth, which is certainly the president was under a coup d'etat, both during the election and as president-elect and as president. Right now, the witch hunt is a coup d'etat. And Comey, after he botched it with Hillary, then came out and lied and perjured himself on purpose so that then later he would be called as the star witness for a special counsel investigation on Trump firing him. This was a setup from the beginning. Even Robert Mueller was the person that was chosen before Comey came out and perjured himself 3 times. We pointed out at that moment that that was the beginning of the end of Comey. And then when he leaked things to the New York Times, personal privileged and executive privileged items, then of course each one of those was a crime. But now he has immunity because Robert Mueller made him a star witness in the special counsel investigation, the witch hunt. He is basically talked about everything he ever did, so now he cannot be held accountable for any of it because it was part of him being a star witness for a grand jury indictment.
The next tweet just announced that veterans' unemployment has reached an 18-year low. Really good news for our vets and their families. Will soon be an all-time low. Do you think the media will report on this and all the other great economic news?
But it shows who the media is. It shows that 98% of that garbage is propaganda. It's not news. And so if you think about it, when people get red-pilled and they get out of Trump derangement syndrome and they wake up and they go, wait a second, it's the exact opposite, then they're going to notice that Rachel Madcow is an insane lunatic. She is a mad person. She is a rabid dog. And everything she says then must be questioned. Therefore, everything on mainstream media must be questioned. Look closer. They are simply reading what Dianne Feinstein's husband and a group of globalists write as the news. And they come across through Avid and through ISIS management as basically what is being scripted for all the mainstream media. So what's going on here? This just demonstrates that that's true. It demonstrates the RICO, the racketeering that's going on in the false news. And so it is now to the point that Trump is calling them every name there is, from mad, crazy, lunatics. They are.
And I love it that fake Fox News numbers are falling, because patriots all around are tired of being hoodwinked by Fox News telling them that they're all fair and balanced and they're giving you the conservative point of view. We're saying, no, we know who you are. You're just as much propaganda news as all the other channels. And people are turning it off. Have you seen the latest stats? Fox News has fallen hard.
If there was anything else to watch, I believe people would be watching it. They only watch it because there's no other choice.
That's it. Okay, so we go on to the next tweet. Volkswagen will be spending $800 million in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They'll be making electric cars. Congratulations to Chattanooga and Tennessee on a job well done, a big win.
Just more winning, and it's just like the previous thing. Nothing's going to be reported. And just like the previous thing, Obama never took care of a single veteran. Ever. Matter of fact, it became the worst it ever was in the military and for veterans under Obama. What is Trump doing? He's out there on the line. I swear, if necessary, he would go to the front line and fight for America at this moment because he is that dedicated. He is not being an alarmist in any of these things that he's saying. He is fighting the global uniparty, and they don't want a secure America. They don't want veterans being treated properly, because then we'd have to look at how those veterans got wounded and look at the wars that they were put in, wars that were fake wars based upon false flags. And so it's just too much winning.
Millions of people killed, murdered, maimed, suffering since World War I because of this British propaganda machine. And people, you got to wake up and stop participating in it. This is why your self-education as a citizen is so important at this time.
Exactly. Like, will this even be reported in the mainstream media? Another big win for Trump, yet it won't even be reported. But they will report every bad thing that they can, because why? It's as Betsy said, since the First World War, it has been laid out how we are being propagandized and being used as puppets, as pawns in the bigger plans of war globally. And that is the uniparty. And believe it or not, most of the people on Capitol Hill work for the uniparty, and they work for globalists, and they work for these murdering warlords.
A big new caravan is headed up to our southern border from Honduras. Tell Nancy and Chuck that a drone flying around will not stop them. Only a wall will work. Only a wall or a steel barrier will keep our country safe. Stop playing political games and end the shutdown. Hey, by the way, I saw that, I'm always concerned about the Coast Guard, because these men and women are protecting our borders offshore. So it's a complicated thing because, they're kind of like a military, but they're not. And they do so much great work. Well, I did notice today that the Department of Defense has come out and said they're going to cover the funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And that's where the Coast Guard exists, right underneath there, through September 2019.
Hallelujah, because the Coast Guard, some of the unsung heroes of America, we want to salute them because they really do the work every day to protect our borders.
As far as the TSA people, though, get rid of them. I remember when the TSA was rolled out, I said, really, you got your uniforms and your ranks that quickly? No, they had all that planned out. And of course, we all know 9/11 was a false flag, again, run by the British propaganda media, supported by all these neocons, again, killing millions of people unnecessarily, feeding the banksters. But the TSA is a result of it, and it's to make sure that all of our travel is regulated by this government, and we've got to stop that. So let the TSA employees go away and never come back. It used to be in the old days is that the airports were responsible for security. So let the airports lease out the equipment that the TSA already brought in there. Let them use that and let them hire their own staff. And they can hire their staff from the people, the good workers from the TSA. But I want to see the TSA shut down. And I tell you, my personal experience is one day traveling out of a major airport, and this was a few years ago. And when I got up to have my passport checked, they wanted to know what hotel I would be staying at. Oh, you are kidding. Oh, did they get an earful from Betsy? And this is before I was radicalized. Well, then, of course, my travels were impeded as I was patted down and everything in every hole in my suitcase was checked. How dare they ask what hotel I'm staying in? They're just supposed to make sure that I don't have anything to harm other passengers. Close down the TSA.
And Homeland Security along Homeland Security.
That is straight out of the Nazi playbook.
Oh, completely. Why is it that all agencies now answer to Homeland Security when they're the newest agency, the least experienced, and they don't know what they're doing?
No, it's just a jobs program for you Democrats.
Well, yes, and the presidents, particularly Democrats, over the last few decades have simply caused the corporate private world to come in to take over the security of America. The National Security Council is filled half the time with private contractors. And Homeland Security, private contractors. Michael Chertoff, right? Look, he basically just made a fortune, didn't he? And they continue to make a fortune by simply selling the thought that we have to be afraid of these radical Islamic terrorists who they haven't spent any effort arresting or stopping either at the southern border.
No, they want to pour them in.
How many reports have we heard of any radical Islamic fascist terrorist sites being closed down because our government is doing their job? Almost none. We hear almost nothing of anything that's being done to stop even encampments of radical Islamic fascists who are training with live weapon, training men, women, and children in America in these camps throughout America, and nothing happens. Why? Because law enforcement isn't here to be law enforcement anymore. They're here to basically grab whatever they can, like everyone else is, out of their greed, trying to rip off and vampirize America. The globalists going after America until America doesn't exist. That's why they don't want a southern border. That's why they just want there to be chaos in America.
Polls are now showing that people are beginning to understand the humanitarian crisis and crime at the border. Numbers are going up fast, over 50%. Democrats will soon be known as the party of crime. Ridiculous that they don't want border security. And see, that's what I was talking about, is that more people are really knowing about this because Trump is just everywhere now talking about it. And I'm looking at that going, okay, that's past news because he's already building the wall and the Democrats have already lost that battle. And so when you see that he's tweeting out about the FBI and its spying operations, you know that one's coming down next.
The Dems, the demon rats, I'll just be nice right now and call them demon rats. They're getting 30 people out in the field to run for president because each of those 30 wants to build a war chest of money they can then use for their other political machinations afterwards. None of them have a chance, and what we're seeing here are gigantic 2020 campaign bombs, and nothing can stop this. He has now called them the party of crime, just exactly as we said. This issue with the border security and a barrier, a wall, whatever you want to call it. And in a minute, I'm going to reveal something to you that nobody that I've heard speaking has put 2 + 2 together, but I'm going to tell you that 2 + 2 equals. Anyway, Trump has created the planks of the party of crime for the 2020 campaign. And their planks are, they support fentanyl coming across the border. A recent nabbing of fentanyl coming across the border, there was enough fentanyl to kill every American twice over. That's right. That was one interception of fentanyl created in China coming across the border. Trump called up China and said, this has to end right now. So what did they do? They said to anyone who is trafficking in fentanyl, it's the death sentence. But China is producing the fentanyl. The southern border is a way for our enemies to attack us, and that's what's going on. So
that's better than a dirty bomb. Just send in pills that people will take, and it could kill the whole population.
Yes.
A lot cleaner, too.
So Trump is defining the Democratic planks for the 2020 campaign with gigantic bombs. Who wants to be part of a party that supports crime, that supports the death of Americans, that supports the murder of Americans, that supports all of our enemies coming across the border?
That would be anybody who opposes America as a sovereign nation.
Correct. So if you want to vote Democratic this time, remember, you're voting for a party of fascists. You're voting for socialists, communists. Hillary and Bill, the two biggest communists in America. And the way that it used to work was with Nancy and Chuck, they're so ancient and they're so archaic. They have no idea that they can't just come onto mainstream media and state lies and expect people to believe it.
Those days are over.
Those days are over. They no longer can control the mainstream media by just coming out and saying, it's immoral to have a wall. It's apocalypse. No, Nancy, no one believes you anymore, with your teeth in your mouth or without. And Chuck Schumer, you are such a liar, you can't look anyone in the eye. No one. He never, ever looks anyone in the eye. Why? Because he's a liar. That's all he ever does is lie and obstruct. And he is the one obstructing justice. He's the one in collusion with Russia. And the Democrats that were in collusion with Russia during this last two elections are a list that recently you put up your TikTok video. Everyone on that list colluded with Russians. And that is basically the entire Democratic attempted coup d'etat against Trump, including the DOJ, the State Department, the CIA, the FBI, all of them, the White House, Loretta Lynch, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, Obama. And when Trump recently said, you're not going to believe who all's involved this, he was talking about Obama and Biden and even Valerie Jarrett, who we said from the beginning.
All the way back to England. Let's not forget, this is a worldwide, and not scandal. Is there anything bigger than national treason? I mean, they were ready to tank the entire world's nations and bring them all under their evil rule.
This was the overthrow of America, plain and simple, and there is nothing worse than that, according to the U.S. Constitution. So it's treason. They can, under certain circumstances, be hung. And that's why people keep putting the noose out there or putting the gallows out there, because this is treason. We've heard Trump say it by retweeting a picture of a bunch of those people behind bars saying, when will they be tried for treason? This is treason, and it's been stated by lawyers, Judicial Watch, as well as even our own Brett Kavanaugh was asked, and he said, yes, there's two ways that you can be tried for these exact things. And neither one of them are military, and both of them could be considered tribunals. So there are ways, and in time, we actually may see some of these people be convicted. But what's going to happen is Mueller's investigation has to stop. The current investigation by Michael Horowitz has to end. The assistance of Huber and Lausch has to end. The redacted documents have to be unredacted and sent out so that we can all see the truth. And in 2 years, once the House is regained by the Republicans, we can then convict those people. And under these circumstances, there is no statute of limitation for this type of treason. So we can get these people, and it will be, just as Tom Fenton was saying, I love what Trump is doing in Brad Parscale. The Trump tweets are basically the 2020 campaign election news board. And if you're watching that, well, you don't have time to watch mainstream media because you're watching too much of the truth over there on the Trump tweets. So keep watching those. And as you do, you're basically seeing that certain other groups that like to do the same thing, in other words, post news clips from other places to underscore their agenda and underscore what they would like to have communicated. That's what Trump is doing. He's using other people's words, other people's videos, as well as his own, and doing a brilliant job. And the Democrats can't even get out of the starting gate. They can't even decide which one of their 32 completely ridiculous candidates will be the front runner. And if Joe Biden, the pedophile, is the number one front runner, that's how pathetic it is. And they don't even know that Trump is dropping the mother of all bombs on them repeatedly. Bunker-busting bombs are being dropped on the head of Schumer and Pelosi. They don't even notice.
Great being with the national champion Clemson Tigers last night at the White House. Because of the shutdown, I served them massive amounts of fast food. I paid over 1,000 hamburgers, etc. Within 1 hour, it was all gone. Great guys and big eaters. And if you want to see that great picture, just check at the link that I have in the production notes and you'll see that. Plus, you'll see that video you were talking about called TikTok.
Yes, and what I like to say is, what a guy. Pulls out his wallet, pays for 1,000 burgers for his team coming to visit. And hamburgers, that looks like ham borders to me. And so is he trying to say that these, that he is an essential worker in the federal government, but he's so essential, he's not being paid. Not only that, it cost him to be there. He had to pay for all those burgers.
And it surely was a lot cheaper than the hot dog parties that Obama used to throw. What was that cost? $65,000?
For some pizza and hot dogs out of that terrible place that in
Yes, of
DC.
course, we all know what that is about.
We won't even say it out loud.
That's right, but it will be revealed in time. So then, now, speaking of that, now he's got a lot of retweets. We're not going to go through every one of them. You can look below in the production notes and see the ones that interest you. There's one, a rancher who is, actually there on the border, talking about how important the borders are. Then the one I really liked here, the next one out, was this link to the Daily Caller article where the senior insider is talking about being furloughed.
That's a beautiful one. But back to the one before that, I just want to say, liberal politicians from Northern California equals Soros open society, open borders, maniac, frenzied lunatics. These are now fascists. When you're talking about any politician from California, a sanctuary state with sanctuary cities, you are talking about non-Americans who are in a battle against us. They have joined the war on the southern border with our enemies against us, and that's what we're talking about. They have invited the invasion. They are like Angela Merkel. They are no longer Americans. They believe that, obviously, other countries have as much right to America as citizens do, which is, we'd have to now call it, the U.S. Anarchy Party. That's the only way I can see it. They don't believe in laws. They don't believe in law enforcement. They don't believe in borders and immigration laws. They don't believe in enforcing any laws. What kind of insanity is that? Anyway, going on with the next one, it is absolutely beautiful what this letter says. It says that the senior leaders, this anonymous letter written by a supposed Trump insider who works in the White House, I don't really believe that's where it came from, but it doesn't matter because I love the sentiment. And the sentiment is very clear, that all the bureaucrats do is obstruct. They are the resistance party. They do nothing that the president tells them to do, so they should all be fired. And maybe that's the reason that we're finding out who's essential and who's not essential, so that those non-essentials can be put on a list to be asked, what do you do anyway?
Hey, the IRS is on the bench. This is what I love. We do not need an IRS to go around and collect income taxes for the Federal Reserve. We need to shut the IRS down. We need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We need to stop giving all of our money out to rogue factions all over the world with OPIC and USAID and the UN. We need to call that back, and we need to take care of America and Americans first.
This letter clearly says the senior leaders do nothing. They don't know what they're doing. They aren't qualified. They're basically evil. Those senior leaders are the senior executive service. That's who we've been talking about. So this letter literally calls them out and says they are the worst. And by the way, they're not essential personnel. So they may actually be furloughed because why? They really don't do anything. They didn't come up through the civil service. They're in charge of areas that they have no experience in. And you hear in this letter a clear description that they are nothing but obstructionists. They're nothing but leaders of the resistance.
And then we have the New York Times, where you just spoke about that, reveals FBI retaliated against Trump for lawfully firing Comey. And then the next one is no one accused Obama of being a Russian agent after he asked for more flexibility until after the election. And then the next one, great again. Prior to 2018, unemployment has only been below 4% 5 times since 1970 under Donald Trump in 2018.
Which is something that should be celebrated. And these all roll together to basically say yellow journalism, propaganda. Okay. But what we also need to underscore here is this isn't just about Trump. How about these angel moms? How about parents who've had children killed by illegal aliens that were then released back out on the street to go kill other people? They don't exist. Clinton rapes don't exist. Homicides around the Clintons don't exist. Wild Bill and Hildebeest get away with anything that they want, and they don't exist. In other words, the mainstream media is far beyond stupid. You cannot use that as an excuse anymore. They are now pure evil. They only preach insanity, or what you would basically call the communist-like party line. I mean, that is really all that is being delivered here is the party line. And so when they start rolling these things together, you have to be very careful. And you have to figure out what is the motivation, because the mainstream media does not tell the truth. They almost never do. And that's the reason why they would say that, oh, it's fine for good old Obama to lean forward and say he'll have more flexibility to move missiles around, to lie, and to make personal cheat deals, which would indicate that he'd already made personal cheating deals with Putin, so much so that he could just lean forward and say, hey, don't worry, I'll continue cheating with you as soon as the election is over. I'll have more flexibility. But where were the translator notes from the meetings between Obama and Putin? Where are the translator notes? Because that's what Trump is talking about here and why people are complaining. They want the translator notes of him speaking with Putin. That is stupid. Every time he spoke with Putin, he came out and gave a press conference. Some of them were so long that they criticized the content of the press conference. But the press conference said exactly what they met and talked about. They always do. It is just a big fat friggin' lie. So when we talk about mainstream media, folks, if you're watching even 1 second of mainstream media, that is 1 second of programming that you're going to have to work to get out of your head.
Well, let's jump into this tweet that I find very juicy, because I believe that what we're looking at are assassination plans that were being worked out in some of these struck page texts. And Trump brings it forward. He said, it's a retweet from Paul Sperry. It says, Inspector General Michael Horowitz still does not have all the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page text, even though a third-party software vendor contracted to the FBI knows where all the missing data is saved. Get the tweets. These two, I want to see if they were lovers or if they were planning assassination.
And these are whistleblowers, and they've already come forward repeatedly, and they've given all this information to the FBI. Christopher Wray has it in his office, along with all the other things that would take down Imran Awan, would take down Hillary, would take down Comey. They have all of this, and it's sitting there doing nothing. And so what this is beautiful for is because they are out there. And so some part of them, scrubbed or otherwise, as the previous ones were scrubbed by Peter Strzok, who took 55,000 of them and only gave out 372, and only 200 and some of them were actually readable. And so then what we have is just from a few hundred, we have clear plans for assassinating the president, for overthrowing the president, for impeaching the president, and for continuing a coup d'etat based upon the bosses of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, James Comey, all of them, James Baker. That would mean President Obama, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, Loretta Lynch were all complicit.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that these texts it's going to be found out that they are so egregious in the planning of what they were doing that they will all go down. They will not even need a trial.
And mind you, they lied about 3/4 of the real texts, because they said that the phones that were being used by Peter and Lisa no longer were able to store the messages because of a glitch in the system. And then it just so happened that those are the very days when we would have got the truth about what they were planning to do to Trump when he was Trump.
Wait. So you're saying that the FBI says it's going to protect Americans against all these cyber threats, but they can't even preserve texts among their own operatives?
Correct. And plus, as Trump has pointed out,
idiots.
Where are the texts of Comey?
Yeah.
Where's Andrew McCabe's texts? Where's James Baker's texts? Where are all the Peter Orr's texts? Where are the rest of the texts of our employees who are using government phones on a government account? And there's no such thing as proprietary information, personal proprietary information, when you are on those phones. As a matter of fact, you sign agreements to even use those phones because they have to be secure phones. But as we know, Hillary Clinton and her crew, her gang, her Chicago mob, including Obama, they didn't use secure phones because they knew that they could have Freedom of Information Act requests for those text messages and they would get caught. And this was their plan from the beginning. This is why her server wasn't secure.
Well, they were using open source. They were letting all their friends know how to access all the material. It's just that the regular Americans out here, we weren't able to access it. Okay, now Paul Sperry, he's got another retweet from Paul. Paul tweeted, so by the FBI's post-Trump standards for CI investigations, would this off-mic exchange between Obama and Putin's deputy, where Obama offers Putin more flexibility on NATO missile defense in Europe, be grounds for opening an espionage probe of Obama? What is Trump saying here?
It's not espionage, it's treason. Plain outright treason, as we just pointed out. Secretly, he makes deals of where missiles are going to go, and those missiles are the big issue for the Cold War becoming a hot war. This is America being sold down the river and national security being thrown out the window. So, yes, what is being implied here is very simple. Obama needs to be investigated, indicted, and put in Gitmo until they have time to hang him.
Then we move to Tom Fenton, and he's reposted tweets from Tom and some video clips. The first one has to do about the crisis on the border, and then the next one is about standing with Trump with the rule of law against the coup targeting Donald Trump.
Well, the first one, Tom Fenton is so correct because all the uniparty globalists have done for decades, back to 4 presidents, till back to Jimmy Carter basically, they have all said, we want border security, and in fact, almost all of them have gotten billions of dollars, in one case, $50 billion to redo the fence along the border. Okay? What happened to that money? Well, here's what happened to the money. It was stolen. It was stolen by states. It was stolen by different agencies, federal agencies. The money, some of it was still sitting there. That's what we've told you about. And now I'm going to tell you the big truth. Okay.
Are you getting to the point you were going to tell us how you added 2 plus 2?
Yeah, 2 plus 2. Here it is. What is Trump asking for? $5.7 billion to finish, and then he gives the exact number, 235 miles or, less than 250 miles of the border wall. Hello? I have told you. We added it up as he was doing it, and with the last $1.5 billion contract, there's only out of the 2,000 miles, there's only 250 miles left. 3/4 of it's already done, folks. And that's before he got a single penny from Schumer or Pelosi. So if you think that this is about Trump begging for money, then you're missing the point. This is about the 2020 campaign being won. It's being won right now, and it's being won long ahead of time. And basically the Democrats, they won't even exist as a party by the time they come to run against Trump. There will be no reason to even have a campaign. Just simply capitulate because the numbers will be so pathetic because you don't take the most winning president in all of history, bash his believers, bash his followers, which is probably 65% of Americans, and then expect for your party, the Demon Rat Party, to then advance. It's not going to advance. And when you split it with a bunch of socialists and fascists and communists, then you have nothing left. And so what we're looking at here is the end of that party, and we're looking at the fact that $50 billion was stolen by both of the parties, the uniparty, in just the last decade, and the wall was not finished. The fencing, it's called the fencing bill. The fencing wasn't even reinforced. And so Trump just simply came along, took existing laws, acted upon them, took existing money, acted upon them, blatantly said he was taking other money, where he was getting it. Nobody seemed to notice. And now he is 3/4 of the way done. And they want to think that they're starting the battle to stop all walls. If it was up to Nancy and Chuck, they would go tear down whatever walls and fencing exist now. That's what they would do. That's what the Demon Rat Party would do. But that's what they're communicating and conveying to everyone is, we are criminals. We are George Soros puppets. And Obama and Clinton basically invited an invasion into America. And what we really see is this was a coup against Trump. And the Trump coup continues with the witch hunt. And now they're going to try to take every single element that they can, anything to do with Trump, and turn it into what they would call an impeachment, which I would call basically a political stupid impeachment, because you have to have broken a law to impeach a president. There have been no laws broken. $100 million have been spent looking for any law that Trump has broken. He has broken no laws. This is a coup d'etat. Remember, they tried to even stop his inauguration. They started the Resistance Party. They started the Obstructionist Party. And now the senior executive service members are out on furlough. And they can't continue the coup because
we can actually get stuff done now that all these bureaucrats are gone. And then what's going to happen when we have to revisit the budget again? Doesn't that occur sometime in March?
Yes.
And if they're still not playing, let's just go ahead and lay off and furlough the whole damn swamp.
And anyone who doesn't show up for work, like Nancy and Chuck and the Democrats down in Puerto Rico, they shouldn't be paid. Matter of fact, they should be fired. They are certainly non-essential personnel. And look at Trump. He's there serving up the burgers himself, paying for it out of his own wallet. Now that is an essential personnel.
Thomas, wrap it up. We have one final tweet, and it reads, "Why is Nancy Pelosi getting paid when people who are working are not?"
Why is Nancy Pelosi worth untold millions when she gets her little pay of being in the Congress? Think of that, folks. She's getting paid under the table, and that's what is overt under the table, that it shows up in her bank account. That's not her offshore account. So when she's standing there saying, walls are immoral, I hear money dropping into her offshore account being dropped there by George Soros, because she is a George Soros puppet, as clear as anybody ever could be, as clear as Obama and as clear as Hillary. Now we have Nancy out there basically doing George's job, and it can't be done because there is no logic.
Listen, I think I hold to this too, just like those tweets. They are protecting. This is Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris. You got Dianne Feinstein up there and Pelosi. They are protecting their human trafficking network that runs from the southern border all the way up there, through Los Angeles up to San Francisco and the Napa Valley, right into Canada. That's going to cut in to a major revenue stream. That's why the globalists are fighting this particular thing so hard.
That is true. We pointed it out before, and it is absolutely the truth. Because the entire state is a sanctuary state, so if you get caught there with a child that you have human trafficked across the border, that you are still turning into human trafficking or sex trafficking with some woman that you brought across the border, nothing can be done to you. Even if you are arrested and put in jail, they have to release you. And then you go right back to the crime. So the entire state of California is an open borders, Soros, chaotic, what I call chaotic Marxism or Marxist chaos, because it is nothing more than an invasion of America, exactly as the European Union was invaded.